I can calculate the mass percentage of elements in a compound, and this time the problem that we're going to solve is one that looks like this. We have a compound of iodine and cesium, which contains 30 grams of cesium and 20 grams of iodine. How many grams of cesium are in 150 grams of the compound? How many grams of iodine? So this is how we attack this problem. First, we always want to start out with our given quantities and our unknowns. Our given, we have 30 grams of cesium, we have 20 grams of iodine, and our unknown is slightly more complex. It is how many grams of cesium would there be if we had 150 grams of a compound? So our unknown is going to be mass of cesium in 150 grams. Our other unknown is the mass of iodine. In 150 grams of the compound. So here's how we solve this problem. We know that we have 30 grams of cesium. We know that we have 20 grams of iodine. So what we want to do first, we want to find the percent of each element. That's what we need to do first. Find the percent of each element. So that's just like the problems that we've been doing. How do we find the percent of cesium? The percent of cesium is going to be the mass of cesium divided by the total times 100. And now we see we have something else that we need to try to find, the total. Well, the total is easy. It's going to be the mass of cesium plus the mass of iodine. So our total, let me write that in here, is going to be 50 grams. All right, now, percent of cesium is going to be mass of cesium divided by total times 100. The mass of cesium is 30 grams. Our total is 50. All right, 30 divided by 50, that's 3 out of 5. That's going to be 60%. All right, so percent of cesium is 60% cesium. Now, we need to find the percent of iodine. There's two ways we can go about this. We can do 100% minus the percent of cesium minus 60% to give us 40%. And that's the easiest way to do that. Percent iodine, 40%. Or we could also plug iodine into this formula. We could take the mass of iodine, which is 20 grams, and divided by the total, which is 50 grams, multiplied by 100. And that will give us 40%. So we found the percent of each element. We have 60% cesium, we have 40% iodine. What now? Well, our unknowns, we want to find the mass of cesium in 150 grams of compound. And we want to find the mass of iodine in 150 grams. So basically what it's asking is, what if we had 150 grams of a compound? What mass would we have of each element? In this case, we have 50 grams total. So this is asking, what if our total was 150 grams? Because if 50 grams is our total, and these are our percents, and it gives us this mass of elements, what if our total was 150 grams? What masses would we have? So, here's what you do. The second step, use the percents to find the new mass. All right, we're going to use the percents to find the new mass. So, what if our total was 150 grams? Right, and we want to find the mass of cesium. Well, the mass of cesium is going to be equal to the total multiplied by the percent of cesium. Total multiplied by the percent of cesium. So the mass of cesium is going to equal, now we're saying what if our total was 150 grams? So it's going to be 150 grams times, and what's my percent of cesium? 60%. We're going to turn that 60% into a fraction, times 60 over 100. And when we solve for that, 150 times 60 over 100, we get 90 grams. So if we had 150 grams of the compound, then we would have 90 grams of cesium. So mass of cesium in 150 grams is equal to 90 grams. Now the same principle applies if you want to find the mass of iodine if we had 150 grams instead of 50 grams. Mass of iodine is going to be the mass of, it's going to be the percent of iodine multiplied by the total. So our total is still 150 grams because we're asking what if we had 150 grams. Our percent of iodine, we got it here, 40%. So we're going to say 150 grams times 40 out of 100. And that will give us 60 grams. And these are our answers. In 50 grams of a compound, it's 60% cesium, 40% iodine. And we have 30 grams of cesium and 20 grams of iodine. What if we had 150 grams of the compound? It would be 90 grams of cesium and 60 grams of iodine. Another way that you can get the mass of iodines, say we already found out the mass of cesium, it was 90 grams, right? We know our total is 150 grams. We take 150 grams and subtract the mass of cesium. 150 grams minus 90 grams. What's left over will be 60 grams. And that's another quicker way to find the mass of iodine. Now, the percents are still the same because we're still operating under the law of definite proportions. So if I take the mass of cesium divided by the total, multiplied by 100, I'm going to get 60% no matter how much compound I have. So if I do 30 divided by 50 times 100, that's going to give me 60%. We already solved for that. But what if I did 90 divided by 150 times 100? I should get, 90 over 150 times 100. I should get the same thing. And look, I still get 60%. And that is an illustration of the law of definite proportions. No matter where you find this compound, it's always going to have the same percentages of cesium and fluorine if it is that same compound. Now, that is how you find the percent of each, that's how you calculate the percentage given to the mass of two elements.